You don't want to hear the volume of that. It's like 30 seconds behind. It's like Zoom's having trouble connecting. So there are some attendees.
It's 5:30. I'd like to call the April 27th meeting of the Rockridge County Board of Supervisors to order. We'll start with the prayer followed by the Pledge of Allegiance for those that wish to join us. Dear Lord, we pray that you guide us always, satisfy the needs that need to be met during this meeting, strengthen us as we make tough decisions. Please guide us so that this meeting can be productive, and please bless the citizens of Rockridge County. Let us be effective and decisive. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I'd like to take roll call of the board members for the benefit of those that can't see us. Supervisor Lewis?
Aye, here.
Supervisor Day?
Here.
Supervisor Ayers?
Here.
Supervisor McDaniel?
Here.
And Chairman Lyons is here. Important notices: the 4:30 p.m. work session was canceled. This meeting is being held by electronic means pursuant to the Continuity of Governance Act adopted by the board on April 6, 2020. Due to the threats posed by COVID-19 pandemic to health, safety, and welfare of the public, and in accordance with the recommendations, guidelines, and requirements of federal, state, and local authorities. Board members will be participating remotely. Staff will be presenting as normal in the Board of Supervisors meeting room at 150 South Main Street, Lexington. And while the room will be open to the public, no more than 10 persons, including staff, will be allowed into the room at one time as per the board's COVID-19 meeting policy. This meeting is also being recorded. There is a link on the Rockridge County website where you can access the recording after the meeting. We will hold a citizen's comment near the beginning of the meeting. Also, there is a public hearing this evening. We will do our best to take citizen comment remotely. There are two options for citizens to offer comment. One, join the Rockridge County Board of Supervisors Zoom webinar. The link is available on the county website to copy in the address line on your browser. Or two, join us by telephone. You can dial one of the numbers that are listed on the county website. The webinar ID and password are also there for your convenience. Citizens wishing to simply view the meeting live or after the fact can do so on the Rockridge County Board of Supervisors YouTube channel, which is also available on the county website. At this time, we will proceed with the meeting. Are there any changes to the agenda?
I have none.
Okay. There are no presentations tonight or recognitions. So we will move on to citizens' comments. I remind everyone that in addition to participating by Zoom or telephone, written citizen comments have been solicited for receipt by email, U.S. mail, and a drop box located in the front entrance of the county administration building. We will take comments in the following order. For in-person participants, if any, the moderator will ask if there's any participants present to comment. If there are, they will be invited to approach the podium and address the board. For Zoom participants who do not have a microphone on their computer, they can click the Q&A button and submit their comments via typing. The moderator will read the comments aloud during the public comments. When typing a comment, please begin with your name and magisterial district. Participants with a microphone on their computer can click on raise hand button. The moderator will unmute participants one at a time to receive their verbal comments. For phone participants, citizens participating by phone will also be allowed to speak. The moderator and the board can only see your phone number on our screen. So the moderator will go down a list of numbers and unmute each line one at a time. Prior to unmuting a line, the moderator will announce the last three numbers of your phone number. You will then hear a recording indicating your phone is now unmuted. At that point, you can indicate whether or not you wish to comment. If stating yes, you will be asked to state your name and magisterial district for the record. In any case, citizens' comments will follow the same rules as normal. Please state your name, magisterial district, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. At this time, I'll open the citizens' comments period. Please note the board is interested in hearing your comments, and the staff has done their best to make public comments possible during this challenging time. This period is to take comments unrelated to the 6 p.m. public hearing, at which time we will take comments related to that matter. Mr. Spencer, if you've received any written comments that should go under the public hearing, please hold them until that time. Mr. Suter, is there anyone physically present to speak?
No, sir.
Okay, Mr. Suter, will you now read aloud any comments received by U.S. mail, email, or the Dropbox?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we do have 2 comments, or actually 3. I just received another one a few minutes ago. I forwarded to you. These are all relative to the 2 issues at hand. They are mainly about the resolution that's in the general, under general items for creation of a fire and rescue association, but that's also related to the public hearing. So
could you hold them until the public hearing then?
I can.
Okay. We now welcome comments from the public by electronic means. It is important to note that this is live recorded meeting and all comments will be taken under consideration by the board. Do we have any citizens choosing to participate by phone?
Not at this time. I don't have any hands raised.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any texts from Zoom?
I do not have any.
Okay, and there's no phone numbers listed.
No, sir.
Okay, with no further comments then, the citizen comment period is now closed. I'd like to bring forward the approval of the minutes from April the 6th and 13th.
I move we approve as submitted.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. All right, now we'll go through the consideration for the 2021 draft budget public hearing advertisement. Mr. Bolster?
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. If you go to your board docs package, I'll go ahead and read through the agenda report. And so you may recall back on April 6th, there was a couple action items that were approved by the board. One was the adjustment of the FY 2021 budget cycle, and also an update on the FY 21 draft budget. And so here we are a few weeks later, and I'm providing an update on the draft budget And then we'll be requesting the board give approval for staff to advertise the FY21 budget that includes the public hearing announcement. So there have been some changes that have actually occurred over the last week. And some of those are listed in the agenda report. You can see that consolidated dispatch, which is on page 43, if you happen to have a hard copy of the draft FY21 budget that was uploaded to board docs, that cost share currently reflects $879,720, and that's up $8,803 from what was previously communicated back on March 6th. In addition, we received an update on the juvenile detention home care budget. That's listed on page 43, and that's line item 33040-3901. And that is actually down $1,772, and it's listed as $29,887 in the draft budget. In addition, if you go down to page 57 on your draft budget, and this is in reference to the Rock Area Recreation Organization, and that's budget 71005. And that's line item 3005. The cost share for the county now reflects $233,728, and that's down $6,991 from a previous submission or notification. If you go down a couple pages to page 59 to the Rockbridge Regional Library cost share, that was adjusted down by 10% or $64,563. And that now reflects a cost share of $581,070. In addition, if you move down to page 63, the budget 81090, which is economic development, you'll see on line item 5603, which is the tourism program, that formula calculation has been updated to reflect a change of a reduction of $81,468. And that's based on a reduction of the quarterly contributions for next year, a reduction of 20% for the first and second quarter, and then 15% for quarters 3 and 4. So the overall contribution in the budget is now $384,000 and $384,065. And with some of those changes, we've also had to make an adjustment back on the unassigned reserves. If you want to go back to page 19, which is at the start of the budget, you'll see that we've adjusted how much we're using from unassigned reserves. Part of that is $22,715, which is a budget savings for this year. That is a reduction coming from the tourism program for the fourth quarter. In addition, we're going to use $419,699 from unassigned reserves to help us gain a balanced budget. And then we also had $18,400 to use as one-time capital to update the poll books for the registrar. And then with the suspension of capital purchases in FY 2020, the previous plan to purchase the all-terrain vehicles and the haul truck for the Parks and Recreation Department, what we've done is we've pushed that out into FY 2021. So if you were to go to page 77, you'll see that the ATV is now listed for $12,000 and the haul truck is at $7,000. That does not impact the overall budget. The plan was to use that from savings in this year, and so we'll use that savings as carryover for FY 21. So as a result of all these updates that I've just discussed, I do have in the board docs packet a balanced budget for FY 21, and it totals $565,235, which is up $357,784 over FY 2020's budget. That's an increase of 0.77%. And so I just have just a few more comments to read through. So you may recall that when we began the 2021 budget process, we faced a $3.1 million gap in anticipated revenues versus requested expenditure. So if the county were to span that gap and we use just real estate itself as a revenue generator, the increase on the real estate tax rate would have been in excess of 11 cents. So basically going from 73 cents per $100 of assessed value to 84 cents. And as you know, the COVID-19 pandemic hit Virginia, and we had to make adjustments on our revenue estimates for FY 2021. Staff, the finance committee, and the board worked tirelessly with departments and external agencies to trim the budget wherever we could to get to a balanced budget. And part of that consideration was also to adjust the potential impact of increases on taxes in general. But ultimately, we do have proposed in this 21 budget an increase of real estate taxes by 1 cent. So going from $73 to $74 per $100 of assessed value. We also have in here a proposed increase for personal property tax, going from $4.25 to $4.50. So that's a 25-cent increase. And then we also have a reduction of the PPTRA, the Personal Property Tax Relief Act rate from 40 to 37%. And it will also mention that there is an increase in the meals tax from 4 to 6% as well. So with that, as I had mentioned earlier, there is a use of unassigned reserves in this draft budget of $419,699. I also, in my board docs agenda report, reflected the schedule ahead. So the plan is to advertise this in the News Gazette on April 29th and April 6th. And we'll also be advertising in the Rockbridge Advocate for May 2020. And the proposed advertisement includes an advertisement or a notice for the public hearing on May 11th, with the budget adoption meeting scheduled on May 18th. And both of those, the May 11th and 18th meetings, are at 6 o'clock. Lastly, we just wanted to mention that as the COVID-19 continues to evolve, we need to exercise flexibility in making additional budget adjustments moving into FY21. And since there is a use of general fund unassigned reserves to assist in balancing the 21 budget, we do need to recognize that next year's budget, as in FY 2022, is going to present itself as another challenging budget cycle. So with that, I think I'm available to show you the advertisement, if that's the board's will, using Zoom. You want me to share the screen?
I need to open it up.
Yeah, you gotta open it. It is open. So what do I go to? So it's on the, it's actually open. Yeah,
It doesn't look like the documents.
it's open on the PC.
It should show one of these. Should be. Was it trying to be on the OneDrive?
It was on.
Jump drive.
Yeah, I opened it up previously on the file. So it's open on the PDF file.
I'm not seeing the PDF.
Is there a way to minimize this?
I'm not logged We could do,
Steve, while you're trying to get that up, does anyone have any questions about the budget that they want to ask now? Maybe that we could get answers while they're trying to split the screen.
it's just-
I just was gonna, what they're trying to show is nothing different than what's on board docs, right? I mean, it's been published.
It's the it hadn't been, it's written, it hadn't been published yet.
Well, I mean, published on board docs. I mean,
Right,
folks can see it from where they are.
yes.
Is everybody able to see it now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks, Stefan. Appreciate it. And so aside from changing the dates and the data points on the draft budget, there is some language that's included here in the second paragraph that talks about the ability for citizens to provide comments for the public hearing, similar to what's being done tonight. So folks can submit it in writing through US mail. There's an email, citizen comment at rockbridgecountyva.gov, where folks can send emails to. They can also call the county administration offices at 540-463-4361, or they could place their correspondence in the drop box that's out front on 150 South Main Street. So these comments, or these citizen comments, will be accepted until 5 o'clock on May 18th. And so typically what we do is we reflect the revenues at the top portion of the draft budget. It's split out between those who are those associated with the tax levy and those that are not. And then as we move down through the general fund, it just splits out the current year adopted budget by department in comparison to the proposed FY21 budget, which is to the right. And it just simply goes all the way down through every department that's listed in the budget. So staff is available to answer any questions that may come up from the board. The section that I'm showing now is just a reflection on the school fund. I worked with David Daniels, their finance director, last week to get this information. So it reflects the school fund's operational budget, and then further down, the school cafeteria fund, and then our construction project fund, and then our capital purchases fund. And then beyond that, it reflects a comparison between the proposed 2020 calendar year tax levies versus next year. So again, staff is available to answer any kind of questions that the board may have at the time.
I have a question for either the staff or the chair. As far as the schools go, we're looking at the 300, and I'm using rough estimates, 342,000 to cover their mandated cost increase.
Correct.
And are we going to allow them to use any year-end surplus next year?
For one-time expenses.
I understand the reason behind that, but I would recommend that we allow them to use as needed
That's
with the understanding that it's not being added to the base. It's not guaranteed for next year, but it gives them a year to help bridge their gap and determine what cuts can or need to be made.
I have no argument with it. The reason it is the way it is that's how they requested. That's what they asked for. I asked if they could use it for, and their definition of one-time expenses were anything from maybe equipment that they were planning to get or supplies. But other than that they almost said what you said verbatim, other than they just asked if they could use it for one-time expenses and that it wouldn't be added to the base.
As a member of the finance committee, I don't remember that part of the conversation. I remember we were allowing them to use the money as they saw fit. I know there were other meetings had directly with the schools that I wasn't a part of, but
Right, when the executive committees met with their executive committee and their superintendent and their finance person, that's when I asked specifically, what do you need to get through next year? And they asked for the 342,000, and if they could have any surplus for one-time expenses.
well, I may get a confirmation of that from superintendent. As I said, I wasn't aware that we were restricting it that way, and it may be we're saying the same thing in regards to what we consider one-time expenses.
Well, and it's like anything else. You use other money for one-time expenses and put that in. So really, it's splitting hairs. If they want to use it for something different, but just like Mr. McDaniel said, they know that it's not being added to the base, and it's not going to be there the following year. And to which they came back and said, yeah, we understand that, and we might ask for the same thing next year, depending on the circumstances.
Right.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I would prefer that we not use any language that limits their use of the funds. They use it as they see fit, and with the understanding, like you said, that it's not part of the base and it may or may not be there next year, but it helps them get through this year, because it's the way I understand it. They're looking at a sizable gap between what they're asking for and what we're funding. So.
And as usual, the gap is been widened by the lack of state funding that was cut. Now, these are unusual circumstances, but that's not an unusual response. So we're trying to help them make that up as usual.
Mr. Suter,
Yes, sir.
we were waiting on a report from the school board from our April 20th meeting. Some of their retirement information. Have we received that yet?
I have not.
Okay.
I'm fine either way. It's a matter of semantics. If they use it for something other than one-time expense, it's one-time money. And so as long as they understand that, I'm good with it.
Okay, then I think we're all on the same page, and I would just agree with Mr. McDaniel. There's no need to put that wording in there. Then it's one time. that part is
well, and it's not in the only wording it is the way we discussed it. So I don't think there's anything that we've written out and holding people's feet to the fire.
okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Bolster on the budget?
Okay, if everyone's in agreement, staff is requesting to advertise the draft budget for FY21, which includes the public hearing meeting notice.
So we're looking for a motion.
Yes, sir.
I'll make that motion. I just have one quick question about that. I mean, have we received any additional feedback from the General Assembly reconvening last week? And do we anticipate any more changes coming from the General Assembly over the next week or so? I guess what I'm asking is, we advertise this, but is it still subject to potential changes coming out of Richmond, or is this just what we go with, and whatever changes we'll make afterwards?
I can partially answer that. It's the situation at the General Assembly is pretty fluid. They did have the one-day meeting. There are a few things that came out of it. We've adjusted where we could, but there's still going to be additional session to finalize. So to answer your question, no, there's not we don't know exactly what the final numbers are going to be from the state.
And that's a question that the finance committee entertained. Mr. McDaniel was concerned over that, but you know, the timing that they'd also put out requires us to advertise. So we're, as so often happens, we don't have all the information, we don't have definites, but we've got to make a decision.
Yeah.
So we felt this was the
yeah, my only question was, I guess we're advertising this. Can there be any changes to this between now and the public hearing, or is this just what we have to go with?
You can only adjust down after you advertise it. You can't
But-
adjust the rates up.
and my
Okay, yeah.
yes, there
Okay,
could
I'm good with that.
there could be changes from the General Assembly.
I'll make that motion to advertise.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Anyone?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Ms. Ayers,
Yes,
Mr. Day,
Yes,
and the chair votes yes. So,
Thank you.
Mr. Bolster, Mr. Suter, for all your hard work, as well as Mr. Lewis on the Finance Committee.
Sir.
At this time, it is 6 p.m. So it's time for the public hearing on the fire and rescue amendments to Chapter 14 of the County Code. I believe we have the chief here to present.
Yes, sir. Is there a way, since these things are so closely related, these two items on the agenda, that chief could present them both at the same time?
That's what I was hoping.
Okay. All right. Well, if we can, then we'll start with the consideration of creation of a fire and rescue association. Just so everybody knows, a lot of what's in the Chapter 14 code amendment that is the subject of the public hearing is related to this first item. And then I've got several comments to read, and we can take additional comments as well.
Hello, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Appreciate your time this afternoon. In consideration to create the Fire Rescue Association, Rockbridge Fire and Rescue Association, I'll just kind of go backwards for just a brief period to explain where we are or how we got to where we are. In February 25th meeting of the Board of Supervisors, the staff was asked the purpose for the three fire rescue related organizations in the county / region that make up the groups. We provided a document that outlined the three groups being the Fire Rescue Commission that was created by the Board of Supervisors, City of Lexington, City of Buena Vista, Rockbridge Emergency Rescue Group, otherwise known as RERG, and the Rockbridge County Firefighters Association, the RCFA. And then over the next several months, we met, me specifically met with the three groups separately during their meetings and presented findings in a memo that you all have been provided, not particularly tonight, but in the past. At that time, the Fire Rescue Committee was Supervisors Day and Higgins at that particular time. Then we were tasked to work on a document, a solution whereby a single countywide association could be established in an effort to assist with coordination and communication amongst all groups at that point. We submitted that memo on October the 18th, summarizing that information, and then was waiting. Let's see, met with the leaders again to gain some more feedback, and then we were asked to wait until January the 1st until the new board members could weigh in on this process. We presented that information on January 27th, in which I provided a summary, much like tonight's summary. In that presentation, we noted that the RCFA supports the initiative while the RERG opposes it. And then discussion with the board. At that point, the board requested that the Fire and Rescue Committee meet with the RERG to hear the opposition and regarding the concept of the new association. The committee attended the RERG meeting on February 26th, heard comments, concerns of the group. And then since then, which is not really in this consideration, Supervisor Day actually attended the RCFA meeting on March 10th to listen to their comments and concerns along with this. And then to recap, again, just saying that the Firefighters Association and the RERG are independent entities and were not created by the board, thus fully up to the members of those organizations to continue like however they wish. Should the board move forward to with the newly formed organization, the county, Lexington, and Buena Vista that formed the commission in 2011, that would provide dissolution of the commission by any parties upon 90 days with written notice to others. So that's what was presented back then, is just a recap of where we are now. And if approved to move forward, then we would have to present a notice to Lexington and Buena Vista and a notice to the members of the Fire Rescue Commission, provide a 90-day notice, and then we would also notify the Fire and Rescue Association as well as the RERG. In conjunction with this, this consideration, as Mr. Suter mentioned, it also would require some amendments to the Chapter 14 of the Fire Rescue Code, County Code, where it's outlined in the code that specifically mentions the doing business with the commission, Fire Rescue Commission, and the association along with the RERG. The commission, the language would essentially change and just reference the new association should you all approve that. In addition to that, we've added some other changes in there, which is more of a housekeeping type item. One, in the code, it references the department name as the Department of Fire and EMS, and we go by the Rockford County Fire Rescue. The title of the of my position there, the chief, is actually in the code as when it was originated as the Director of Fire and EMS. The title of the position that I currently hold has been changed to the Fire Rescue Chief. So that is some housekeeping things we would like to add in there should you approve. And then there is a section in there about adding an ordinance should the county, the Fire Rescue Department see the need to put in a countywide burn ban, that ordinance is in there to allow enforcement of such. And then there's also a section in there to allow the Fire Rescue Department, upon approval of the county administrator, to suspend any member of an organization, fire and rescue organization that should be under investigation for some type of criminal activity, should the activity demean the face of the organization or the county fire rescue system. I believe that sums it up. If you have any questions.
I have one. Going to the resolution, Nathan, or the creation, or chief, of the creation of the new association, the composition section, section A, talks about who the members are, and it offers in the event that a chief is unable to participate, the chief shall designate an alternate, which is not also a problem. But I assume these are open meetings, such that members of a fire department or rescue squad who wanted to attend could do so, even if they're not the chief or the designated alternate. Obviously, they're there to audit and not necessarily vote on something. But is that a reasonable assessment?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Anybody would be able to attend these meetings.
Okay,
The idea behind that is that each department would have a vote. If something came up to vote on, it would be that department.
right. And I think the resolution, that's obviously where it's going, but I wanted to make sure that other members could attend and express their thoughts.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Has a copy of the resolution and the code changes, proposed changes been given to every department?
No, so not every department. We shared a copy, reviewed a copy with the president of the RERG and the Fire Association. And then we reviewed it with the commission, during which time, and back then it was an effort to review it with the leadership and the commission, and then provide the document to the board around March the 9th excuse me, not March the 9th. It would have been when we first presented it to the Board of Supervisors. We kept it so that you all had first view of it. We did discuss at length the process during all of these meetings. Since then, some agencies that have asked for the document have received the document. But no, sir, to answer your question, the resolution has not been sent out to all departments at this time. However, it has been on board docs and public documents since it was first presented.
Yeah, we received it back in March, I think. So it's been publicized. Mr. Chairman, if Chief Ramsey's finished with the presentation, as we've had some comments submitted already, I'd be interested in hearing if there are any other public comments. In other words, maybe it would be okay to go ahead and start the public hearing and get us that information as well.
Well, we'll do that if there's no other questions from the board members.
Thank you all.
Will we have an opportunity to ask questions afterwards? Chairman
To
Lyons?
Chief Ramsey?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay.
All right, we'll now proceed with the public hearing. We'll follow the same process as we did in the citizen comment period. Mr. Suter, are there any citizens present that wish to speak?
I don't know. No one who wishes to speak, I don't think.
Okay. Mr. Suter, you have written comments that you've received?
Yes, sir. Hold on just a second. Mr. Bolster has a question.
Just want to make sure. Having transition from general items.
Okay, so Mr. Bolster's question was just making sure we had transitioned from general item 9 to the public hearing.
Right.
Essentially, this is opening the public hearing, and
Yeah.
I have received 3 comments today, and I will read them to the board. The first is from Colby Irvine, Chief of Walkers Creek Fire Department. And his comments are, I'm speaking for Walkers Creek Fire EMS on the resolution for formation of the Fire and Rescue Association. Walkers Creek's position is that the measure should be tabled until our current situation with COVID-19 has changed for the better. We are not saying that we are against the resolution. We just ask that the board take a step back and maintain the current status quo. This will give the fire and rescue community the ability to continue to focus on caring for the communities as well as keeping our members safe. We are hoping that the board will consider this and reevaluate the resolution once the pandemic has passed. Thank you for your time. Again, Colby Irvine, Walkers Creek Fire and EMS, Middleburg, Virginia. And the second one was from Mel Barnfine, Chief of Rockford Bass Fire Department. It's more brief, but Rockford's Bass Volunteer Fire Department feels we should wait until after the COVID-19 has calmed down so that we can have a regular meeting. And I received another one that's a little longer right before the board meeting. I have sent this to the board. And this is from Steve Reese. And it says, members of the board, while it's my impression that your decision has already been made concerning this issue, I would like to continue to go on record stating that the Rockbridge Emergency Rescue Group, RERG, opposes the creation of a group that is unfair to EMS and will take away the voice of the EMS transport agencies. Any way you slice it, it's 4 to 11 votes, and we have no way of being heard in this new fire association. You have been given a lot of information about creating this group by the fire chief, and he's continually shown the two independent groups in a bad light. This simply isn't a true representation of what's going on. I read the memo presented to the Emergency Services Committee. It was full of inaccurate information, but they believed it and have helped push for creating the fire chief's new association. The fire chief, at I believe the county administrator's guidance, is doing his best to portray the two associations in a bad light. The truth of the matter is that it couldn't be farther from what actually happens. The two groups have always been able to come together when needed to make joint decisions, and there's never been a time when we haven't done so. According to the fire chief, it takes 4 months in order for the two groups to discuss common items. Again, this is not accurate. The RERG made its meetings on opposite months of the current fire association so that it would reduce the amount of time it would take to discuss any common items, and those have been few and far between. The fire chief, in his own words, has told myself and others at multiple times that the current fire association has been unable to hold productive meetings for years due to the lack of participation by the fire departments. With all due respect to them, that is none of the RERG's business. We have held all but one meeting in the past 3 years and due to not having enough agencies present. It's been very difficult for me to understand why the fire chief is pushing so hard to create this fire association. I can only assume that he's doing his best to take everything away that EMS has worked for by placing our fate in the hands of the fire departments. While I had hopes that you would not do the same, I will say the fire chief and county administrator has convinced you otherwise. It's really sad that EMS has to lose everything while the fire departments are being handed the reins. According to the fire chief, you're going to give the new fire association control of the funds that the EMS transport agencies generate. That is a true detriment and slap to the face for EMS. The fire chief wants you to hand those funds over to him and the fire departments. Why would you do that? What are the fire chief's motives here? I've reviewed the resolution created by the county administrator for the new fire association. I feel like I should point out the following issue. The executive committee will be comprised of a majority of fire departments, since the resolution only calls for one person to be from a rescue-only agency. So the county administrator is supporting the fire chief in making this new fire association governed by the fire departments. I also noticed in the consideration memo that the fire chief points out to you that the RERG remains in opposition due to us being outnumbered and losing our vote on any item. This is absolutely correct. He goes on to point out that 9 of the 11 fire departments hold an EMS license as well. I believe this is an effort to make you think that this means, that means the fire departments that are EMS will side with the transport agencies. I honestly don't understand that comment. A fire department with an EMS license is still at a fire department first. That's their main objective, and that's what they support. I would point out that transport agencies support those 9 first responder departments with the exchange of supplies, and they are not generating the funds in the revenue recovery fund. I fully expect you to continue with creation of the fire chief's new fire association, even though I view this as 2 completely different topics. If you want to disband the commission, that is one thing, but why create a new fire association in its place? I do hope that you have the forethought to make adjustments to keep it a fair organization. Without that, it will truly be a fire association. However, since the RERG has agreed not to unfold like the fire association, the RERG will continue to make the decisions for EMS. We are a united group, and I've been unable to wrap my head around why you would be willing to allow the fire chief to tear us apart. I expected more respect from the fire chief, but he has shown that he has no respect for EMS by not even considering our opinions about his fire association. He has pushed continually for his new fire association, regardless of the fact that he doesn't have to he doesn't have buy-in from the agencies that he's shoving together. We should have a chief that represents us all, not a chief that represents fire departments without labor, but has snubbed his nose at the rescue squad. As you create the new fire association, please remember this: the RERG should not be disrespected by the fire chief or the new fire association because we decided that we wanted to keep our unified EMS voice heard and not disband like the fire association. The RERG will continue to make EMS policy without input from the new fire association, and that will be the policy that EMS will follow. The RERG will continue to make regular budget requests to the Board of Supervisors without input or discussion by the new fire association. The new fire association replacing the commission will have no need for any budget money for its own use, just as the commission did not have that need either. Finally, when you hand control of the revenue recovery fund over the new fire association, they start coming up with ways for those funds to be put in the hands of fire departments. I hope you will question why this is happening and EMS is getting left out. Respectively, Steve Reese, Chief Fairfield Volunteer Rescue Squad. And that's the only written comments I received. Again, I received those today. We have not received any that I'm aware of from the Dropbox or written comment by U.S. Mayor.
Okay, we'll now take comments via computer and phone. Zoom verbal first.
We don't have any attendees with a hand up right now on Zoom.
Okay, do we have any texts on Zoom?
No, sir.
Do we have any phone calls?
There are no phone calls.
Okay. With no further comments, the public hearing is now closed. Discussion amongst the board, and if you have questions, I think Chief Ramsey is still here.
Yes, sir.
Chief, let me ask a question. Do you feel that we have we would be at a disadvantage to go forward at this particular moment? I mean, the initial meeting was in January, so this is something that has been on the horizon, or at least being considered for a few months. Given that this will be August 1st when it goes into effect, do you see that there's any wisdom in waiting in light of COVID?
Certainly, it's you all's decision. Personally, I don't know what the difference would be, but again, it's I would leave that up to you all to decide at this point.
Well, I mean, from my point of view, I rely on your expertise to know whether or not that would cause us it should not cause the community any issues in their care. I can't foresee any, and can you, I suppose, is what I'm.
No, ma'am, not any issues in the sense of public service. I'm confident that will continue as it always does with our great fire and EMS departments that constantly answer calls 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
I'd just like to say, first of all, thank you. Yeah, as Nathan pointed out, to all the volunteers. We appreciate them, and we want to support them in any way we can. I also like to say I respect the work of the committee on this, Mr. Day and Ms. Ayers, and I know they've been to meetings and listened to concerns and so forth. Also to Ms. Ayers' point of it's been out there, the concept started even farther, last March is when it first was discussed in a board meeting. So it has been being bandied about a good bit. But based on Mr. McDaniel's question and feedback initially from my district, it seems like there may still be some questions Mr. McDaniel's question, was had each agency seen the resolution? And Chief, it was to be distributed, but we don't know that everybody had it. Is it possible to get that resolution to them and set this back as it wouldn't take into effect August? Set this back 30 days, to our May meeting to let us have a little more time to talk to our volunteers and gain support.
Wasn't the January meeting for that? Wasn't it for discussion? I believe that at the January meeting that we made a decision. It was up to vote in January, and the decision then was that Mr. Day and myself would speak to them, and they would voice their concerns to us, and they did.
That is true. I just feel like I've gotten today, some lots of comment about it, and again, while I respect the committee, I feel like I'd like just some more time to talk to my volunteers and try to get some questions answered. I'm not. I think the collaboration of this resolution is a good thing, but I would just like some more time. That's just me.
Oh, well, I understand, but I will say that it epitomizes, I think, the issues at hand, that things take too long, decisions take too long. It has been a difficult and not an efficient and streamlined way for our staff.
And
I feel like the time has come.
I'm the last.
But I respect your decision.
I see no reason to prolong it myself.
If it was up to me, I would, because I'm not sure that, with the changes that have been made and the final document as presented, I'm okay with the final document as presented. My thing would be that these documents need to be delivered to each agency, and whether it be the chief or captain or whoever signs some form for Chief Ramsey stating that they received it, not that they agree with it, not that they're in favor of it or against it or anything like that, but they received it, and give them a deadline, like Jay said, for our May meeting, that they have to, any questions, comments, responses, whatever, they have to have in writing to us so that we can take all those into account. It seems like today, we got several messages from organizations requesting some time on this. I'm not saying 6 months. All I'm asking for is a month. And I just want to make sure that they all received it. They all have an opportunity to review it. They all have an opportunity to voice their questions or concerns to us before we vote on it.
Well, that was what our meeting was in February, and then again in March. And we've been here. We've been here for several months.
And I can't disagree with that, but that maybe they didn't have time or they didn't take the opportunity. But
well, that's not our problem if they didn't take time. But I can't believe that there's an agency that's not aware of this action.
I just going on, on the David's question that maybe they haven't seen the resolution. I agree that it's been, as I said in my comments, that it's been posted, but there was some feedback that I got that said they didn't. So there's 4 agencies in Walker's Creek, and two of the comments that we got were asking us to wait. So I feel compelled to represent them and ask that question. I can't disagree with you, Mr. Day or Ms. Ayers, but it seems like a compromise to ensure that they have the information to go with Mr. McDaniel's suggestion. report, actually, based on his question.
And I'll just say further, I mean, I was a volunteer fireman for nearly 15 years. I understand there's differences between fire and EMS. I get that. And I'm not sure that you're ever going to have a full consensus. But that's why we're elected officials to make this type of decision and all. But the volunteer network in Rockbridge County is essential to providing services to our citizens. And while there may not be a full consensus, I just want to make sure that we're taking into account the voice of our volunteers, so that there has to be some level of buy-in. Otherwise, you're looking at going to, fully paid personnel, which would be an enormous cost on this county. So that's my reason for asking for that.
This is a public meeting, and this is an opportunity tonight.
Folks, may I interject a thought?
Certainly.
If it takes an additional month to do this, it's an additional month. And if everybody has that, and I really don't think that well, I know Mr. Reese, that's going to not change his mind. He's been very consistent through this, and respectful. And but if it takes, going ahead and sending the final document out, again, it has been out there, but to the point that it's not been directly delivered specifically to every single chief and captain, we could do that, and we come back in a month.
Okay, well, as far as the resolution, it's directly related to the ordinance to amend Chapter 14 of the County Code. We basically have two options, so everyone could think that way. If moving ahead with the formation of the F&R Association, we would have to adopt the resolution, and we would have to adopt the ordinance to amend Chapter 14 of the County Code. If we're going to delay action on the resolution to form the association, then we will not take any action on the resolution, and we should set aside the decision on the ordinance. Since there are updates related to the formation of a fire and rescue association in the ordinance, we could re-advertise with just the other changes and bring that back to the board at our second meeting in May. Would that work, Spencer?
It would, or you could bring everything back as is. Those are the choices. You could
Right.
you could get further feedback, and you could bring everything back as is. It would need to be re-advertised per code, but you could bring it back.
So those are our choices.
And it's not that I doubt that Chief Ramsey or Mr. Suter or the Mr. Day or Miss Ayer, I don't doubt at all that you've had these conversations. Part of the reason I said either chief or captain or designee in each department signs a form saying they received it. Not that they agree with, but that takes it off our back down the road for someone to come back and say, well, I didn't know that was in there, or I didn't know that's how that was going to work.
I understand. I guess I feel that I have watched our staff work with these organizations, and I feel utmost confidence that they have been incredibly inclusive and respectful, and I don't think that there's anything to fear here, other than it's different. It's a little different, but it is much more efficient. it is, I feel like it's time to tear off the Band-Aid. That's my feeling. And I also just want to go on the record for saying that very pleased with the way our staff has conducted themselves.
Are there any other comments? Do we have a motion on how we want to proceed?
I would make a motion to bring it back in 30 days. Spencer, if I may ask a question there on the re-advertising, we've had the public hearing. What do we need to re-advertise?
You would only need to re-advertise if there was a change in the document. In other words, if it's the same document, correct? If you want to hold another public hearing, you can, but you're not required to.
Yeah, I wasn't advocating for that. I was advocating for namely myself, be able to have time to speak with the agencies who are in my district who are asking us to wait. So that would be, as I said, my request. And I understand that it's been out there. I don't think the document needs to change, but I want to ensure that they all get it and have just a little more time to ask.
So if I'm understanding correctly, you're suggesting we delay voting on the resolution until the second meeting in May? Is that
correct? Correct. And so I'm not advocating for any changes or anything like that.
No.
But just the timing, unfortunately, yes.
Okay.
And that would be May 26th, I believe.
Right. So we have a motion to postpone any action until May the 26th.
Mr. Lewis, does that motion include delivery to each organization?
Yes, that's
And some sort of correspondence from them that they received it?
I apologize. Yeah, per your suggestion.
Do we have to wait for do we have to wait for their correspondence that they've received it? Is that what you're asking?
What I'm suggesting is when Chief Ramsey or whoever delivers it, they get a signature right at that point in time. So hopefully over the next week, those deliveries can be made.
Okay.
And if that's inclusive of your motion, then I'll second that.
It is, and I can restate if necessary, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so the motion is that we delay to the second meeting in May, which is May 26th. Any action on the resolution and ordinance, allowing time for the chief to hand deliver copies of everything to every department and have them signed for.
Well, sure, we could use electronic delivery if electronic signatures. I mean, we're not trying to do something overly problematic here. Just make sure they get it. So I don't know that it has to be hand delivered, but delivered and acknowledged.
Okay. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I just want to make sure that everybody understands.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? All right, Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
Mr. Day,
No.
Ms. Ayers,
No.
and the chair votes yes, we'll delay it for 30 days. All right, let's go back to consideration of the farmer markets application, Mr. Suter.
Yes. So Steve Hart has applied for a farmer's market on his property off West Midland Trail, just west of Fredericksburg Road, per section 4-44 County Code. His application does meet all requirements of the code and will be an asset to the Carrs Creek community. In your package is his application. along with his application is that section of code, as well as new guidelines from Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services for operating markets during the COVID-19 outbreak. And Mr. Hart is aware of these. We did post a link of this information on the county's website. Be happy to answer any questions you might have. And the recommendation is to consider this information, and if in support, approve his application as submitted.
It's an honor market, right? I mean, there's no staff.
My understanding.
It fits well within current restrictions. I mean, that, yeah. And he's offering hand washing also.
I think it's a wonderful idea and opportunity. My only worry is the hygiene with this particular event that we're having, and how, if it's unstaffed, how that could be protected.
Well, I was thinking with the no staff, then the distancing would only have to be with the customers, which I mean, it minimizes who's got a distance, and then
Right.
also the sanitation for the hand washing station is attempting to, you know, minimize those possibilities.
It does state that 1 or 2 days a week, if demand increases, they may staff the market to assist customers, meet customers. My guess is that they'd have to do kind of a burn-in phase and see which are the busiest days.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean to make the focus of the application on the current problem. I was just thinking that fits even with the current problem. So I agree that it's I think a good idea, and will help support that area, have access to local food, which is, as a local farmer myself, is something I'm passionate about.
Any other comments? I'll entertain a motion on the application.
Dan, it's in your district, but if I may, I move we approve it.
You may. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Ms. McDaniels,
Yes.
Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Consideration of resolution to extend the due date on county decals. Mr. Suter?
Yes, as a result of COVID-19, the typical April 15th county decal purchase deadline was extended to May 15th. And based on discussions at the board's last meeting on April 13th, I believe Supervisor McDaniel brought it up. Staff is returning with a resolution to ratify and also further extend the deadline to June 15th, 2020. In addition to providing citizens with additional time to purchase decals, the extension will in fact assist the county treasurer's office. County Treasurer Betty Tirado and her staff are working in shift to avoid a complete shutdown in services should a staff member be quarantined. Thus, there are typically only 2 people processing payments or answering phones at any given time. So that's proved to be a challenge. Even though the counter is not open, they're processing a lot of work. And she has asked me to state that to please ask the public to be patient with them. They're doing the best they can. A resolution to ratify and extend the deadline is attached for your consideration in the package.
Any questions for Mr. Suter?
You may have said it, Spencer. I'll make the notes. I'm sorry, but I assume Mr. Rado is understanding.
Yes,
the extension.
she is very supportive of it. Yes.
Okay. I would make a motion we approve. I'm sorry, there may be more questions.
No, we'll entertain motions.
I make a motion we approve.
I'll second it. I'll second Jay's motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Day,
Yes,
Ms. Ayers,
Yes,
Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Appointments, we have a opening on the TAP board. Ms. Stockdale's term expired on the 21st of March. Mr. Sigler, Bruce Sigler, has been retained as rental assistant supervisor and is willing to serve on the TAP board.
I make a motion, we approve the appointment.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Day,
Yes,
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
Ms. Ayers,
yes.
and the chair votes yes. All right, is there any other business to bring before the board?
No,
If
sir.
not, can we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Do we have a second?
Second,
Okay. Mr. McDaniel,
Yes.
Ms. Ayers,
yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Day,
yes.
chair votes yes. Thank you all for everything you did tonight. Stay safe, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then